Hello, and in this video I'll be showing you how to set up your story project and a game project from scratch using Storyteller and Gamebridge 2020.1.8. Now I have covered setting up a character using Gamebridge from scratch in a previous video. However, I'll do it again in a very simple scene, and in this example we'll be using voice clips, animation, and we'll be using two cameras to look at the interaction between two characters from the perspective of the player and from the perspective of the NPC. The most code that will be written here is about 5 to 10 lines of code, and that's just to run an animation. Alright, so let's just begin here. So as you can see in my assets folder, I do have my Gamebridge asset and my Storyteller asset. For the Storyteller asset, actually I've just imported, actually, let me delete this. I only imported the library folder and the resources folder here because you actually do not need all the files to be imported to actually get started and use Storyteller. All the other files that are included in the asset are just for the example scene. So if you don't need the example scene, then you only need to import the library folder and the resources folder. And again, you need to import Storyteller first and then import Gamebridge. All right, so let's get started. So I'm just going to go to Tools, then I'll go and click Storyteller, and it gives us our layout here. I'm going to close that, and as you can remember from our previous videos, we want to create a story. So I'll select Story. I'll select a folder where I want to create that story, and I'll just click Create. Let's just dock this to the right here. Let's put the properties over here. Inspector over here, link manager down here, hierarchy, actually like this, and then like that. Pull this over here, so that's organized, and our timeline, put the timeline here. All right. So there we go. So I'll look at the scene here, and let's go ahead and see. We can do two things first. We can actually, let's just work inside of the Storyteller first before we work in the scene. So we're going to create two characters. It's going to be character A and character B. So control click. Let's call this character A, and this is character B, and this conversation is going to be simple. So we're going to see, let's create that bit of dialogue here, and we're going to say to, let's just go into our settings really quickly and increase the size of our nodes in the timeline, make it larger. All right, there we go. And let's just expand this out more. Let's hit Control and right arrow key to get some more nodes out. And then we'll say hi. And then the character B's response is going to be hi, how are you? And player will say, or character A will say, fine, thank you for your concern. And then we'll have character B say, do you want to see this cube spin? And at this point we want our, actually let's just delete this bit. We want our player to respond to this question. So when you ask a question, you can have at least two different responses. So let's see what responses we can set up here. So we're going to create a route so you can choose between two or more responses. But we're just going to use two responses here. So it's either going to be yes or no, but we're going to make this a little bit better here. So we're just going to say, so it's going to be route 0 here. It's going to say yes, sure, show me, or no thank you, bye. Actually, let's make this into a voice clip instead. So let's double click this and record a voice clip. No thank you, bye. And if you play this back, no thank you, bye. All right, so there it is. So now we have text and a voice clip. And the next thing we're going to do here is, since this character who's going to be our NPC now, actually let's just call it NPC1. And let's just call this one player and NPC1. All right, since our player responded to a question, our NPC would also have at least 2 different responses. You can have 3, where you can actually choose the 3rd one or 4th or 5th one based on a bunch of different factors, but we'll just go ahead and just use 2 right now. So let's create a route here, link to it, and then let's give a bit of dialogue here, or action here. Yeah, sure, show me, and let's just switch this up here, just organizing. So this is going to be route 0. And say okay. Actually, let's delete this first. Let's do a dialogue. I just want route 1 to be at the top. Let's see, fantastic. Or we can say okay, bye, and then let's put an action here. And an action node here really represents an action that your character can take. When you're using it in game, you have your action be an animation or something else. So I'm just going to say here spins cube, and I'm going to hit Shift S to save it, or right click, file, save. And as you can see here in the timeline, let's just organize this interaction. So our player says first hi, then the response is going to be how are you. So let's just organize that. It says hi, how are you? Fine, thanks for asking. And he's going to ask, do you want to skip spin? And we're going to say yes, sure. So that's the end of that. Or is it? So if we switch to a second route here, we see that we have this different bit of dialogue, but when we change the interactions, we don't see the change happening with NPC1, and that's because these aren't linked. So if we select this route here and we look in the properties window here, we'll see information relating to this particular node. Let's just hit Ctrl-Alt-N to display all the node names. And we want to link this route with this one so that whatever choice our player character makes, that choice is reflected in the decisions that our NPC makes. So let's just click this link and link it to route 6 or 6th route. And there we go. So that when we make different choices, the route changes accordingly. All right, so nowadays he's going to say, fine, thank you for your concern. Do you want to see cube spin? You're going to say no, thank you, bye. That's a voice clip that's going to be played. And then at the end of that, the NPC will say, okay, bye. And then we're just going to close our dialog window with an end node. You close it with the dialog, but we'll just close it with the end node here. Let's go ahead and just add an end node. And there you go. We just set up all this dialog, this really short piece of dialog without writing any code or anything. And all of this will be brought to life in game when you start using the game bridge. All right, so I'm just going to hit Shift S again to save this. And we could sample this if we added a media node here. So drop a chaining color on that to differentiate. We can just turn that on, check the colors. differentiate between it easily. There we go. And we could just play through that, sample it. No, thank you. Bye. All right, so that's the route that we're on, but we're just going to go back to the beginning here. And let's go inside of our project here. Let's right click, go to create, and we're going to go to GameBridge and scene data. Now this scene data is an asset which is going to be taking all of this data in our scene here and putting it inside our scene data, which is going to be usable in game. All right, and we're just going to right click, go to window and open up the GameBridge, and we're going to dock it. And if we select our scene data, we see that we have this thing here called no name. Like, what is this thing? It's actually your scene that you're working in here. As you can see, the name is called no name. If we click on our scenes area, scenes window here, we can rename this to, for example, scene 1. And if we go back to GameBridge, we see it's now called scene 1. So if we select it, we get to see our player and NPC, and we can push over their sound effects, voiceovers, or personality traits. We're just going to go ahead and click push to scene data. And now all of this data now exists in the scene data. And we can confirm this. So if we go to the inspector, open this, we can see all the data here that exists in our scene over in this scene data. All right, so the next thing I'm going to be doing here is we'll go to the hierarchy here. We'll go into the scene and let's begin just creating some game objects. So let's create a floor. So let's create a plane. Let's game object, 3D object, and a capsule. This will represent one of our characters. We'll duplicate that. It doesn't matter. We don't need to rename them right now. I'll just go to the inspector and we'll just, so we can see the names. All right, now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is now preparing to have these characters interact. And let's also just add our cube there that we want to animate and spin. So I'll go game object, cube. I'll put it over here. And first, before we work with the cube, I will go ahead and set up the characters. So let's choose which one we want to be the player. So we'll just choose this one to be the player. So I'll select this capsule here. I'll go to GameBridge and I'll add a character component. Now, the reason why I'm adding a character component is because as compared to a dialogue component, the character component can be used in interactions which are largely non-linear. So if you're looking at something like a dating sim, for example, the interactions, though you have branched interactions, the overarching interaction in general is mostly linear. It's all planned and you know who's going to be spoken to next. However, in a game like for example, an open world where you can speak to different NPCs, you can choose who you want to speak to at whatever time you want to speak to them. So that's mostly non-linear. And the character component allows us to engage in that kind of non-linear interaction. So let's add a character component to the capsule here, and let's add one to the other capsule. And now it's asking for, now that we added the character component to the capsules, and now the character component is now asking for some scene data. So let's just drag in that scene data on both, here. And this is the fun part. Again, no coding here. We can choose which character we want to represent this game object. So let's choose player here and click setup. And let's just add something to this quick. Let's add a player trigger. There we go. And the player trigger is really just going to be the thing that determines who we're interacting with and lets the GameBridge know to trigger conditions or bring up a dialog box or whatever you want it to do. And on the player trigger, as you see in the previous example projects and tutorials, you can actually trigger an event when you begin interacting with a character or when you stop interacting with a character, when you leave their trigger area. So let's set up that particular trigger area on our NPC here. So let's select NPC for this one, click setup, and as you can see here, the game object is renamed to match the name of the character. All right, that's fine. Now on our player, we want to do this thing here where we turn on the player. When the crown turns gold, it means that this is now our player, and you should usually have only one player in that particular scenario. So for example, in this scenario, we have one player speaking to that can speak to various NPCs, but won't speak to one NPC here. You can have multiple players in a scene. However, they can't be part of the same scene here. When I say scene, I don't mean the Unity scene, I mean the storyteller scene. All right. So we set up the player, we added the player trigger. Let's complete the NPC. Let's add a 3D object, a plane. Let's add a plane to this. Let's rescale it. Let's put convex is trigger, and let's tag it with NPC, and let's add a NPC trigger, and let's drag in the NPC as it asks for, and let's just position it correctly about down here. If I can find the floor right there. And let's just hide that mesh renderer. All right, there we go. Make sure we're not touching it already. All right, fine. All right, so now that's set up. Go to the player. Now, usually if you have, as you've seen in previous videos, if we had multiple NPCs here in this particular scene, we would actually use a route and the condition system to determine who we're speaking to by using their route numbers and interacting with them accordingly. However, since we're only doing a very basic example and speaking to one NPC here, we don't need to specify interactions by route numbers. So we're just gonna walk up to this NPC and begin interacting, since this is the only dialogue that exists. All right. So let's see here. We've set up the player. We've given it the player trigger. We've assigned the player character. And let's also add the target tag. So the player trigger needs to know the tag of the thing it wants to interact with. So if you remember, we added the NPC tag to the trigger. Let's go ahead and call this, let's see, NPC trigger area. We tagged it NPC. So that means that for the player trigger area, we want to tell it that it should only interact with anything tagged NPC, not the character, the trigger area. All right. And let's just make sure this works by adding a rigid body to that and turning off gravity. We're just going to use the, just going to drag it in to interact. All right, now what's missing now is a UI system. So sure, we have our text here, but we don't have a UI to display it on. So actually don't want to go ahead and create a brand new UI from scratch, because that's actually the most annoying part, is just creating a UI system. And that'll take, everybody knows how to create a UI system, and that'll take a little bit too long. So I'm just going to import an pre-existing UI system. So let's go to the asset store here. I'm going to go to, let's go here. And let's import one from the Storyteller project. Actually, I'm going to import two things. I'm going to import a prefab button, which is literally just a UI button made into a prefab. And we're just going to import a pre-existing user interface. There's no specific code in it or anything. It's literally just some UI put together. All right, so let's go ahead and select none here. We don't have any animations. Here's a button. Let's go with this UI button here. And the UI is actually in a scene. So let's grab a scene and import it. Now the scene's probably going to be full of bugs because we didn't import all the files. So it doesn't matter. I just want to steal the, look, we need to save this. Call this tutorial. All right, so let's get that UI, stage canvas, user interface. Let's copy the event system also. Let's paste it in here. Let's clear this and let's delete this scene since we no longer need it. All right, jump to the game now. So here's our stage canvas. Here's our event system. So it needs a camera. Go ahead, give it that camera. And actually, let's give it a different camera. Let's give it a camera specific to the UI. Let's go camera. I think that should work, shouldn't it? Yeah, it should work. Let's go ahead and put this camera under the main camera. Oops. And let's call it the UI camera. All right, there we go. And that should probably, yeah, that should work. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's check the UI prefab button here. Yeah, it's missing the sprite. Let's give it any sprite here. And the reason why this has to be a prefab, as is mentioned in previous tutorials, is because, for example, here we have the options to either say yes or say no. We want to display that as a text option where you can click on yes or no. So we need to be able to instance UI. So we make this button into a prefab so that we can instance it. And we're going to instance it under this game object called the route button parent, which is just a game object with a grid layout group. And that grid layout group really just organizes the buttons in a grid form. So just straightforward. So in order to actually complete this, what we need to do now is that let's go ahead and select the player. And this is where this comes into focus. So the character that is the player is in control of the user interface. So we do not set up the user interface on any character that's not the player. So let's select the player and let's go down to the general settings here. And let's go to UI settings. And it's asking for an area to display a name. And in this canvas, in this UI here, we have a name area. Let's put that there. We have a dialog area for this area to display dialog. We have a button area for the move next and previous button. So we go to move buttons down here. Let's go next and previous. But we're not going to display the previous button, so let's turn that off. We only want the next button. And route button parent, yes, this, and the prefab button. Text display settings, we can use typed text, and the best value for typing text is 0.05, or is it 0.005? I think it's 0.05. Anyway, we don't have any typing audio, so let's go ahead and just use instant. We're not going to turn on auto start voiceover or sound effects. This will override the auto start for all voice clips and sound effects if we turn them on. Instead, in order to play our voice clip, we're just going to go ahead and select this dialog here, and in the condition here for this particular voice clip, you can see that the voice clip exists here. And again, whichever node you select, you'll see information relating to that particular node inside the inspector. So if we select this one, we see all the information relating to 8 dialog, which has the voice clip. And we can say, let's say automatic start, and let's say player, character component, play voice clip now. And that's it. It's just going to play the voice clip. Now we can also trigger this to start at a particular time. We can use real-time delay, delay duration, or a custom time. So if you set to 10 seconds, then it wait 10 seconds before it plays that voice clip. However, I like to go with this real-time delay, or just use auto start, since auto start is actually the best option for this example right now. All right, so we have our audio clip that's going to be played. We have our dialogue that's going to be displayed. We should be able to run the scene now and do the interaction. Oh, one more thing. Let's select this. Let's do a auto start, and let's say stage canvas. Oops, player. Stage canvas, game object, set active true. So what this means is that whenever we speak to the NPC, whenever we begin interacting, the very first thing that we're going to say is hi. And as you can see, the very first thing is hi. So when this very first thing happens, we want to turn on the stage canvas and display the text. So we're going to use auto start, turn on, and then when we begin interacting, we're just going to turn on the canvas here. And if we end the interaction, then we're just going to turn off the stage canvas. This is NPC. So condition, let's add an event, auto start, stage canvas, game object, set active, false. And as you can see here, there was no coding whatsoever. So let's look at this. And if anything is missing, it should tell me. So I'll just go ahead and run this. Let's see what happens. Oh. Let's put that camera in the right place. Forgot the camera's not actually following anything. And then we're going to set up the cameras to look at the interaction from 2 different perspectives. And then we'll set up the animation. All right. Oh, actually, let's put the game view over here. And that should display. All right, so there we go. Now it says hi. If we click next, it says, how are you? And fine, thank you for your concern. Do you want to see this cube spin? Yeah, sure, show me, or no thank you, bye. And if you listen closely, you hear the audio clip, the voice clip play. No thank you, bye. All right, so that's how that goes. And then it closes it, because what the end node here, we select NPC, we see it says automatic start, turn off the stage canvas. That's simple. What I'm going to do now is that I want to switch to cameras. So I want to change perspectives, make things a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to create 2 cameras. So I'm going to go game object, camera. And I'm going to position this one at a nice angle. Let's put it right here. Give it a little bit of a tilt. And duplicate that. And then rotate this. and then move it back. All right, there we go. And let's call this one the NPC's camera, and let's call the first one the player's camera. And again, we're going to do this without coding. So we want to switch these perspective based on who's actually speaking. So what I'm going to do here is that I am going to simply just go to my player character here, and we're going to be using general conditions now. So we're going to say, dragging the NPC trigger here, and we're going to say if the NPC trigger get interacting with this player. So we're basically checking if the player is interacting with this player is equal to true, then we're going to do two things. We're going to want to turn on the player camera and turn off the NPC camera. Yes. All right. And for the NPC, we're going to use a general condition again. General condition. This is going to be auto start. And again, general conditions run whenever the character is executing a process. So whichever block of dialogue this character is running, if it's character saying any piece of dialogue here or carrying out any function here, then general conditions run at that time. So general condition, we're going to do the opposite. So if the NPC is actually having some dialogue or interaction, then we want to turn off the player camera and turn on the NPC camera. And we're going to do camera and enable true. And then on the NPC trigger itself, we enter and exit. The three things that we want to do here. So when we enter, we want to turn off the main camera. So I'm going to go to camera and enable false. Then I want to go to the main camera again when we exit and say camera enable true, and player camera and NPC camera enabled false, camera enabled false. All right, and if I run this, I should turn these off first, then run it. Go interact, and that perspective changes. We need to display the UI. So I think this was a layer based thing. So let me see here. This is supposed to be on. Set this to 1, I believe it was. Same as this. Yes, correct. All right, there we go. So go ahead and interact. And there's our dialogue. We switch around, we go back, and we go back again, and we switch. No thank you, bye. No thank you, bye. And we go again, and that ends it. And then if we leave, we go back to our original view. All right, only one more thing left, and it's the animation of the cube, and that's actually quite simple. I'm going to do it quite quickly. So I'm going to select the cube. I'm going to go to Windows, Animation. I'm going to dock it next to the timeline here. I'm going to create an animation while I have the cube selected. Let's call it spinner, and I'm going to save it. And then we're going to just create the world's most horrible animation. I'm just going to go to the cube, and I'm going to go ahead and add a property, transform, rotations, add that. Let's go up here and let's just do that. And there we go. We have that spinning animation. Oops. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Windows, Animation, Animator, I'm going to go ahead and create a new state, an empty state. I'm going to make a transition to that state. And just go ahead and just add that in there. I'm going to select here. And oh, let's add a parameter here. Let's add a Boolean. Let's call it spin. And whenever this Boolean is going to be set to true, then we'll just spin it. So I think you can see where this is going. We're just going to use the condition system to set the Boolean to true to spin the cube. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and add the net parameter here. So spin true is when this will actually occur. So if we go ahead and just create a short piece of code now, we go to C# and it says call this do spin. And if I remember correctly, I should be accessing the animator. And then I'm going to say public void spin now animator set set bool string spin is equal to true. Save that. And then I'm just going to attach that script to anything actually. I'll just put it on the cube itself. And then in the inspector, I'll just drag the cube into this. And then I will go here to Storyteller. We do the spin here, NPC1. So we want to auto start this. And then I want to drag the cube in. Say do spin. Spin now. So that's just going to trigger an animation on the cube to let that spin. Let's just go here and just turn that off. All right, so we need to turn on the auto start also on the function which will trigger the spin of the cube. And let's just go ahead and run this. It should work. So that cube's for spinning. Anyway, let's just do the interaction. It should spin it again. Let's go through here. And there we go. So there we just trigger the animation. And we're also switching camera views, and we do have our text and our buttons here. Anyway, so there you go. So we just set up this very basic character interaction, two characters interacting. We created the dialogue, we set the voice clip, and to set sound effects, again, you just double click the area here and you can select a voice clip or a whatever audio clip you have, and it will just set it there. And it will play as intended. You can set that audio clip to play at a custom time using real-time delay duration, any one of these, or you can have it automatically start, which is what we're using here. So that's it for this video. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next videos.